So I just finished playing this Charon Incorporated, and right off the bat I just want to tell you, because I think it's only fair to do so, this is not my kind of game. It's a short, kind of, maybe not terribly short, but like an hour, Euro-style game without a lot of real linking to the theme. So, and it's mainly just a pure strategy type of game, with some luck with these cards in here, etc. But I'll be told I'd rather play a game of cards instead of this. If there were only a few games like this, and I said this before in the playthrough, this would be some sort of revelation to me. But there are so many games like this out there, and of course you could say the same thing about war games. There are so many war games out there. But this is just not aiming to my taste. Also, with that in mind, though, I think I can still give it some fair assessment of what it's like. Let's start with the components. They're very nice and serviceable. You got this pretty kind of board with... the only problem I have is with the removal of the area if you're not playing with a full number of players, but you have to kind of do that in the components. In order to make the game work right. It was a good decision, I think, but, you know, visually it's less appealing, I think, if you're playing with that many. Little flags are a little cheesy looking, but perfectly serviceable. The gems here are, you know, designed to attract the mind of either crows or 8-year-olds, but they're, you know, kind of pretty, and they add a little something to the game, even though when you're grabbing them, or at least I was trying to grab them one-handed, it was very difficult. The cards are fairly good quality, a little stiffer than I like for shuffling, but not bad. And that's it. That's what you get in the game. A bag that's not terribly bad to hold. But then there's the rulebook. And the rulebook isn't very bad either. It's organized in a way that's a little confusing, but it's so short that it doesn't really matter too much. What is missing is there are a couple of, at least ambiguities that I couldn't resolve by looking at it easily. That's no big shock. They may be there, but I didn't see them handled. For example, what happens when you're out of little gemstones? Could be squirreled away in there somewhere, but that kind of situation strikes me as a bit of a flaw in the game. There could be games where you stand back and say, well, what do we do now? We got to make up a rule right quick. And of course, once you have that happen, or if you think about it beforehand, you can come up with some sort of solution for that without too much extra work. Alright, so what about it as a game after this playthrough? Well, my thinking with it is that it's a very, very clever little idea. There's maybe no particular element of it that just stands out and says, wow, this is so different from everything else. I need to have this, but the pieces fit together very well. The amount of decisions that have to be made and the depth of those decisions is very high. I'm thinking the analysis paralysis situation, if I were sitting there without a time limit or something, this would be a really, really hard game for me. Because, and this is something I also brought up in my discussion, when you have to select your special actions, and this is probably the hardest part of it all, when you select your special actions from here as to where to place your flags, well, there are just so many different options, each of which has, you know, all these impacts. And especially when you come down to the last couple plays, where you've got a couple of choices and you can really delve into them in any particular round. If you have the engineering thing still available, you have to look through the entire discard deck and see, well, is there anything I can guarantee buying or not, if you really, really want to win this game. So there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of that kind of analysis of what is my optimal move at this point. I hate that kind of thing. So, you know, for me, the only way this game would be fun is to play it on a very, very strict short time limit per move. You know, maybe 30 seconds or a minute per move, where you're just expected to slap things down. And what happens there? Well, maybe you get the person who plays the best on instinct, but I don't think you hit the kind of game that maybe the people who enjoy this kind of game really want. It reminded me a lot of games like Medici, or especially of Bazaar, where you're trying to collect this set of things to turn in for something that's worth points to you at the end of the game. What it lacks from Bazaar is those weird trade-in mathematics that come out through it. But there's still trade-in mathematics involved in it, where you can trade 3 or maybe 2 pieces for one of a different color, or you can convert a whole pile of pieces from one color to another if you take that option. But yeah, there's, you know, so many different routes in which to optimize your points at any given moment. Now, for some people, that kind of optimization is just, you know, heaven or whatever. For me, it's a nightmare. That's about the worst thing that you can hand me in a game. The only thing that's going to make it good is if I'm not allowed to think very hard on it. And if I'm the only one who's not going to think hard on it, which I can do. I mean, I can sit and play a game and not give a crap and just throw it out. But that's kind of going to degrade from everybody else's enjoyment of the game. The same way that someone who, you know, plays the kind of games I like without really trying to win would be very annoying. So, you know, this is the kind of thing that I would probably stay away from for the most part. I think it's fairly light. The kind of game that maybe you could bring in a pile of games to a light games night or something like that, where nothing over an hour or two. Does it really fit in well as, I mean, it would fit fine as a filler game, but would it fit well as sort of the end of the night type game? No, I don't think so. I think there's too much thinking, too much analysis in it. You want to play something much, much lighter in that kind of case. But anyway, I think for people who do like games with a lot of that kind of planning that can be disrupted very, very easily by someone else's move, because anyone can screw you over at any time on the map. This is actually a very, very interesting and nice little mesh together concept of a game, if you will. I can look at it and say, I can see why people would enjoy this, but my God, I'm gonna hate ever playing it. Anyway, not a lot more I can say about it. If you want, you can look at the rules introduction that I put in, or you can watch the playthrough to see more if it fits your style of playing. But those are just my thoughts on it. The biggest problem for me is probably the kind of thought involved, followed not too far behind with the fact that I don't feel like I'm running a company. I feel like I'm playing a game where I'm placing flags and trying to collect things. I don't like being in that position. I like being where I'm very, very closely linked to the concept of this sort of space, you know, colonization and mining and everything. That's what I wanted. I thought it looked kind of cool. I wanted to give it a shot, but I've got to learn to stop looking at things that look like euros and saying, oh, maybe it's what I want, because I should know better.